For 3 decades, Johnny Carson stood behind that desk like an impenetrable fortress of composure. Every night, America invited him into their living rooms, and every night he delivered the same unshakable presence, controlled, professional, eternally poised. In an industry built on manufactured emotion and calculated vulnerability, Carson was the last of a dying breed, a performer who believed that showing your feelings was a failure of professionalism. His Midwestern roots had taught him that men didn't crack, didn't break, didn't let the world see what stirred beneath the surface. And yet, in the rarest of moments, something would slip through. Not tears shed for effect or emotion deployed as strategy, but genuine cracks in armor that had been fortified by thousands of broadcasts. These weren't moments Carson wanted to share. They were glimpses he couldn't prevent, breaches in his defenses that revealed the deeply feeling man he worked so hard to conceal. What follows are the 7 times television's most controlled personality found himself overwhelmed by emotion, so authentic he couldn't suppress it. Moments that have become legendary precisely because they were so uncharacteristic, so real, so profoundly human. Understanding why these moments matter requires understanding who Johnny Carson was as a performer and as a man, someone who viewed emotional restraint not as coldness, but as professionalism of the highest order. The most devastating of these moments came in 1981, when Jimmy Stewart walked onto The Tonight Show set carrying something unexpected, a poem about his recently deceased golden retriever, Bo. Stewart was already an American treasure, a frequent guest whose presence guaranteed warm conversation and genuine connection. Carson had no warning about what was coming. The segment began ordinarily enough, 2 old friends settling into familiar rhythms. Then Stewart mentioned he'd written something, and Carson, intrigued, invited him to share. What emerged was raw grief wrapped in simple verse. Stewart's voice trembled as he described his dog's habits, their nightly routines, the unbearable emptiness that followed Bo's death. The studio fell silent. Cameras captured something unprecedented. Johnny Carson wiping tears from his eyes, trying desperately to hide his response, failing completely. His professional instincts warred with genuine emotion, and for once, the emotion won. Carson was a dog lover himself, but the tears weren't simply about subject matter. They were about watching Jimmy Stewart, this embodiment of American strength and dignity, permit himself complete vulnerability. In that permission, Carson found himself unable to maintain the distance he'd cultivated so carefully. When Stewart finished, Carson tried to call for commercial, but his voice fractured mid-sentence. The audience understood they'd witnessed something rare and precious, a moment when even Johnny Carson couldn't hide what he felt. Thousands of calls flooded NBC afterward, viewers expressing not just appreciation for Stewart's tribute, but astonishment at seeing Carson transformed from television host into genuinely moved human being. The segment has endured through decades, replayed countless times, not merely because Stewart's poem was beautiful, but because it captured the impossible Johnny Carson, completely vulnerable, cut off guard by emotion he couldn't control or compartmentalize. The second unforgettable moment arrived during Carson's final week in May 1992 when Bette Midler appeared on his penultimate show. The entire week carried extraordinary emotional weight, everyone acutely aware they were participating in television history's conclusion. Carson maintained his characteristic professionalism, but the awareness of ending saturated every moment. Studio crew members who had worked with Carson for decades found themselves processing their own feelings about this monumental transition, watching as the show that had defined their professional lives prepared to go dark forever. Midler had been booked as one of the farewell guests, and near the segment's end, she announced she wanted to sing for him. The band began playing One for My Baby and One More for the Road, and the atmosphere shifted instantly. This wasn't performance. This was Bette Midler singing directly to Johnny Carson, offering a musical goodbye to a man who'd shaped her career and American entertainment itself. Carson's face registered the transformation immediately, understanding this wasn't entertainment but personal farewell. His expression changed, the mask slipping to reveal someone visibly moved by this acknowledgement of his imminent departure. He looked away from cameras repeatedly, swallowing hard, blinking excessively, fighting the emotion rising within him. By the song's conclusion, his eyes were unmistakably wet. When Midler moved toward him for an embrace, Carson attempted his closing remarks, but his voice noticeably choked. This wasn't simply a man moved by beautiful performance. This was someone confronting the end of the most significant chapter of his life, granted the gift of having that moment's emotional weight acknowledged when he himself was too reserved to articulate it. The embrace between Midler and Carson communicated volumes that words never could have expressed, a physical manifestation of gratitude, respect, and the bittersweet recognition that an era was concluding. Robin Williams provided another powerful moment in 1991, shortly after Carson lost his son Rick in a devastating car accident. Carson had briefly addressed the tragedy on air with characteristic restraint before resuming his professional obligations, believing his job was entertaining people, not processing grief publicly. This philosophy reflected Carson's entire approach to his role as entertainer, a belief that audiences deserved escape from life's difficulties rather than being confronted with his personal sorrows. William understood the situation demanded something different from his typical manic energy. He arrived with a completely altered approach, telling staff backstage he wasn't there to perform his usual routine but to support Johnny. The interview began with Williams' humor but at a measured pace, gradually creating moments of genuine connection amid comedy. Toward the segment's end, Williams gently acknowledged Carson's loss without directly mentioning it, a subtle but unmistakable message of support. Cameras caught Carson's eyes visibly watering as Williams expressed understanding of his pain. It was fleeting but powerful, a glimpse of vulnerability from television's most controlled personality. Williams had found the perfect balance, giving audiences expected comedy while creating space for human connection with someone grieving. Carson never directly addressed what happened that night, but staff overheard him saying Robin understood exactly what he needed, high praise from someone who rarely commented on guest performances. What made this interaction particularly remarkable was how it demonstrated the power of genuine friendship, transcending the artifice of television, to performers connecting authentically within a medium that so often prioritizes performance over humanity. Sammy Davis Jr.'s post-cancer appearance created another emotionally charged moment that revealed Carson's capacity for deep feeling beneath his controlled exterior. Davis had been a Tonight Show regular throughout Carson's tenure, always bringing characteristic energy and talent. Their relationship extended beyond professional courtesy into genuine mutual respect and friendship. But when he appeared following throat cancer treatment, typical showbiz repartee gave way to something far more powerful. Backstage staff were shocked by Davis's appearance, the weight loss and treatment's toll clearly visible. There were discussions about whether the appearance should even proceed, but Davis insisted, determined to show the public what cancer looked like rather than hiding from view. Carson, briefed about the condition, was nonetheless visibly shaken seeing his longtime friend walk on stage. His hands clasped tighter than usual, a slight tremor affecting his voice during introduction. Davis, determined to be honest about his condition while still entertaining, insisted on performing a brief song, his voice notably affected but artistic commitment unchanged. Watching his friend struggle physically while giving everything artistically cracked Carson's facade. His eyes welled up without any attempt to hide it. The emotional peak arrived when Davis thanked Carson for never turning his back during Davis's career, acknowledging the host's support during times when racial barriers significantly limited opportunities for black entertainers. This acknowledgement carried profound weight, recognizing Carson's quiet but meaningful use of his platform to advance careers and challenge industry prejudices. Carson, clearly moved, attempted responding but found his voice breaking. This unscripted gratitude from one professional to another, especially given the circumstances, genuinely touched Carson in ways viewers could witness plainly. The moment represented more than simple friendship. It acknowledged a legacy of decency and support that Carson had never sought credit for, but that had profoundly impacted countless performers' lives. During Carson's final show on May 22, 1992, an unexpected phone call from Jimmy Stewart caught the host completely off guard. The farewell broadcast had been carefully structured with Carson alone on stage, no traditional guest format. He wanted to speak directly to his audience without the usual interview framework, creating an intimate conclusion to 30 years of nightly conversation with America. The call wasn't on the rundown, arranged last minute without Carson's knowledge. When Stewart's instantly recognizable voice filled the studio, surprise was evident on Carson's face. His entire demeanor transformed, not his professional host's smile, but genuine pleasure spreading across his features. These were two men with tremendous mutual respect, and their authentic connection became immediately visible. Stewart's voice showed his advanced age, but still carried that distinctive, hesitant quality, as he expressed admiration for Carson's accomplishments and personal appreciation for their friendship. Carson fought for composure throughout, nodding rather than speaking at certain points, a technique he used when too emotional to trust his voice. There was a moment toward conversation's end where he simply fell silent, that pause communicating everything about what Stewart's friendship meant. When Carson finally responded, viewers detected subtle but unmistakable emotion in his voice, a slight hoarseness and barely perceptible tremor betraying feelings beneath his controlled exterior. The call represented a perfect bookend to their relationship, Stewart having been responsible for one of Carson's most emotional moments years earlier, with the poem about Beau, now providing another touching moment as Carson's tenure concluded. Ed McMahon's farewell tribute during Carson's penultimate show created one of the final week's most emotionally charged moments. For 30 years, MC Mahon had served as Carson's sidekick, their professional partnership evolving into genuine friendship that provided foundation for thousands of broadcasts. MC Mahon had prepared his words for weeks, understanding the historical significance of what was ending and feeling enormous responsibility to honor not just their professional partnership, but personal friendship. Their relationship had weathered the inevitable tensions that arise from spending more time together than most married couples, emerging stronger and more genuine for having navigated those challenges. Departing from his usual boisterous announcer role, MC Mahon adopted a reflective tone, speaking directly to Carson about their 3 decades together. As he recounted memories and expressed gratitude, viewers witnessed Carson struggling to maintain professional demeanor, swallowing hard, blinking rapidly, all subtle signs of someone working to keep emotions checked. What made the moment particularly powerful was watching McMahon himself become emotional, his voice cracking as he thanked Carson for their friendship. This visible emotion from his longtime partner seemed to further affect Carson, whose eyes visibly filled with tears. There was a moment where their eyes met and something passed between them beyond words. Two men who'd spent more time together than most marriages last, now acknowledging it was ending. Carson attempted lightening the moment with humor, but even delivering the joke, viewers could see emotion remained just beneath the surface. The exchange represented a public acknowledgement of a partnership that had shaped both men's lives and careers, a relationship that had become so integral to their identities that its ending carried profound personal significance beyond professional implication. Carol Burnett's final visit during Carson's farewell season provided another spontaneous emotional moment that caught Carson unprepared. Burnett had been a Tonight Show favorite, her quick wit and genuine warmth making her one of Carson's most welcome recurring guests. She came prepared with usual funny stories and comedy bits they'd perfected over years. The interview began conventionally, both performers settling into the comfortable rhythms they'd established through countless previous appearances. But as the segment neared conclusion, Burnett suddenly shifted tone, addressing Carson directly about what his support had meant to her career and expressing personal appreciation for their friendship over decades. This wasn't prepared speech, but spontaneous heart-speaking about Carson's impact on her career and American entertainment as a whole. It caught him completely by surprise. As Burnett continued her impromptu tribute, cameras caught Carson visibly moved, but fighting to maintain composure. His eyes noticeably welled as Burnett spoke about specific instances when his support had made career differences, moments Carson had likely never thought twice about, but had meant everything to a fellow performer. When Burnett concluded, Carson attempted responding with typical light humor, but viewers detected emotion in his voice, that slight hoarseness and barely perceptible tremor betraying feelings beneath his controlled exterior. It was acknowledgment of professional generosity Carson typically extended privately, a public recognition of how he'd used his enormous platform to elevate performers he respected without taking credit publicly. Burnett's words gave voice to what countless comedians and entertainers felt but rarely had opportunity to express so directly. These 7 moments reveal depths Johnny Carson rarely permitted audiences to glimpse during 3 decades on air. Beneath that unflappable exterior existed a man of profound feeling who occasionally found himself moved beyond carefully maintained professional composure. What makes these instances particularly significant is their complete authenticity. Carson's tears were never strategic, never performative. They were genuine reactions he actively tried suppressing, following generational and personal codes, viewing public emotion as something requiring control rather than indulgence. Viewers weren't simply witnessing emotional displays, but watching a normally controlled personality, struggling with unexpected power of his own reactions. These weren't tears shed easily or for effect, but emotions so genuine they breached Carson's considerable defenses, revealing the deeply human core of television's most legendary host. In examining these moments collectively, a pattern emerges about what moved Carson: most profoundly genuine expressions of friendship, acknowledgments of shared history, and moments when peers he respected revealed their own vulnerability, granting him permission to respond authentically rather than professionally.